We're going to look now at some pictures so that you can see the neuroscience, because I think when you can see how we're made, how we're put together, it really makes a difference to understanding what's going on. So our first picture here is of our, well, how I describe as Mr. Muscle Man. We've peeled back the skin and you can see how many muscles we have and where they are. It's a powerful system. It's one of our most important systems to help manage, but it also explains why we can be so clumsy, why we can be so uncoordinated, because so many muscles are used in the process of just being able to do things automatically. Driving a car, kicking a ball, handwriting, use all those muscles, and if they're not 100% integrated with the brain, then we're going to find some difficulties. Here's a picture of our face, and exactly the same thing. We can see just how many muscles move in the different directions so that we can have great facial expression. We can manage to chew and to bite and to eat. We can speak well. We can communicate, and we have that non-verbal communication that automatically happens because we're integrated with our face, and we know that some of our children, some of our adults just don't have that. The light touch is going to pick up fabrics that people don't like wearing. If you need to apply skin lotion, they're not going to like that either. Going off to sleep can be really tricky because of the fabrics of the bed linen. We need to consider how that is affecting the light touch. So we have two tracts, two nervous systems. They're very separate, that go to the brain in different ways. One takes the light touch, temperature and pain. The other takes deep touch and vibration. So we really want to go in where there is the deep touch. The Pacinian corpuscles, the Ruffini end organs. That's why it's often helpful to have massages or it's deep hugs for people. You don't apply light touch. And we use the deep touch system powerfully when it comes to managing those who are more sensitive in their skin. Here we have the sensory homunculus. And this is where we have that proportional representation of how many senses we have in which parts of our body. So we can see the face, the hands, and the feet are the clearest. Not so clear on this picture perhaps, but they are the clearest areas for sensory perception. So that we know where things are. We can feel them, we can touch them, and that's why we have so many issues with our fine motor skills, with our mouth, and why we can't feel things with other parts of our body. So we don't use our elbows or we don't use our backs to work out what something feels like. We go in there with our hands because they've been specifically designed to be individual and to have those tiny, tiny receptors so that we can do things with our hands and not with our knees or with our elbows or anything else. And we move into our somesthetic and motor cortex, that picture there where you see them both together. As the information comes into the brain, through the brainstem at the bottom, up to the cortex, it takes all the information, what we feel, and transmits it to what we can then actually do. So we need to feel what's coming from our fingers in order to then be able to physically do something with them, detailed and constructive. This next system is the purple one. It's the vestibular system, right in the inner ear. So the vestibular system picks up any change in head movement. Whether we move our head backwards or forwards, to the side, jelly in there gets moved around and sends impulses to the brain. So it helps keep ourselves upright so we're not slouching over. It helps us keep balanced and protects us from falling, or that we have that instinctive reaction to put an arm out to stop ourselves from falling. It helps with our muscle tone. Movement keeps us alert and stops us falling asleep during the day, so that you'll know that if you're tired, if you've been sitting for a while, one of the best things you can possibly do is just get up and walk around. maybe we go and have a toilet break, or we go and put the kettle on. It's that importance of having movement to keep our systems aroused. And it also grounds and centers us and helps us know what direction we're going in. If we're kicking a ball, which way up the pitch we need to kick it. If we're looking at maps, we know which direction is which. It's a very powerful sense. The eye has millions of cones to be able to pick up light, the complexities, the colours that we see. Some people are very sensitive to each individual colour, and we need to factor that in. Some have difficulties with depth perception, being able to understand how far away something is. And the same way with the auditory system. It is there to help us pick up and locate where someone is speaking from, the pitch that they're speaking with. Some sounds are really difficult, aren't they, for some people? It's the pitch often, the frequency that it goes into the brain that causes the problem. So we have in the auditory system those ossicles, those bones that get vibrated by the sounds coming into the ear, and they get turned into electrical impulses sent to the brain so that it can understand what those sounds meant and whether they should react to them or not, or whether the children or the individuals are going to put their hands over their ears to block out that sound. Here we can see our taste buds. We've got about 10,000 around the mouth. They're not just on our tongue, they're around the mouth, so that's why we can have difficulties with toothbrushing, as well as with textures and tastes. They're replaced about every 2 weeks or so. And it's something to keep in mind that the hotter something is, the more intense the flavour. So that can really help. Just a little pointer for now, that make things cooler, and that can be easier. With our smell, you can see the olfactory bulb there at the top of the nasal cavity, and that picks up about 10,000 odours. We are so sensitive to our smell, but it's the only sense that doesn't go through the brainstem at the back of the brain. It goes straight into our limbic system. That's classed as our emotional brain. So that's why when we smell something, if you remember walking into your granny's house, there's a smell that comes with it. Or maybe you smell seaweed and then you think of maybe some holidays that you took as a family, and you have all those memories that come back with smell. Smell is powerful, but we need to deal with it in a very different way. So I hope this has been really helpful for you, seeing physically what is going on in our brain, so that we can then understand behaviours and relate those to our physical bodies, and therefore apply strategies to change those things that we find difficult, to make a real difference.